Good morning, students. How are you? I think all of you are okay. Take care. Here I am again, and I am starting with a new chapter on literature. Previously, we have done the chapter Determiner, which is a chapter of grammar. In the textbook Hornbill, the first chapter is the portrait of a lady, and in the present series of videos I am going to explain this chapter elaborately. But before I begin to elaborate and explain, let me tell you at the outset the methodology that I have adopted to explain this. I think this is very important. So the methodology that I have adopted can be divided into various steps. For example, at the outset, I will describe the objective of studying this lesson. So what are the objectives? At the end of this lesson, what we'll be able to do. And secondly, I will take up each and every aspect of the objective and describe it in detail. Number 3, I will take up any technical terms that might have cropped up while explaining the objectives. And finally, we will go straight to the story and then understand it and analyze it. This is what is the methodology that I have done. So you have to be very focused, regular, not only in watching this video, but also in doing the exercises given at the end of this video. The first part of this video is with you right now. So without wasting time, let us move and go straight to the video. So students, let's begin the story, which is entitled The Portrait of a Lady, written by one of the eminent authors and journalist, Mr. Khushwant Singh. At the outset, it is important for us to know the objective of studying this chapter. At the end of this chapter, you will be able to know the story of the author's grandmother as told by him. It is important because it's just a story of the grandmother of Khushwant Singh. It is a biography of his grandmother. So at the outset, we should know what the story of his grandmother is. Secondly, we should understand that just reading the story and knowing the story is not enough for a student of literature. We have to understand the story by answering some important questions which will help you to reflect on the story which you have learned and find out the relevant aspects and collect them and then answer them according to the question. That aspect is called understanding the story. After you have understood the story, it is time to analyze the story in the light of certain parameters. Unless and until you are able to analyze the story, it's futile to read the story merely. Therefore, analysis of the story forms an important part of reading this chapter. And the analysis of the story includes, number 1, analyzing the style used by the writer to depict the biography of his grandmother, to know the tone and to know the anecdotes that are used, and apart from that, to answer the questions regarding the tone, the style and the anecdotes used. You might wonder that such a story, which is a biography, why should we bother about all this? Definitely, most of the students think like that. A story is merely a story. And that too, this story, which is a biography, is a short story of the grandmother of Kushwant Singh. Reading this story will not help you in any way to get a good marks in the examination. Of course, it forms a vital part of your study. Therefore, there are three objectives of reading this story. Number one, to know the story of the author's grandmother as told by him. Number two, to understand the story by answering some questions related to the story. And number three, to analyze it. Then and then only your study would be complete. And fortunately, at the end of this series of videos, you'll be able to do all these. Students, this chapter is a biography, as you know. So we must first of all set out to know what a biography is and how many kinds of biographies are there. Actually, students, biography is the life history of a person. Now, this biography, as you can see on the screen, can be of two kinds. One is autobiography and second is biography. We must understand the difference between an autobiography and a biography, because both of these are the story of the life of a person. Autobiography contains a prefix auto, which is a Greek word, and together it means the life history of a person written by himself or herself. Suppose that I want to write a biography about my own life, then whatever I will write will be an autobiography, because I have written it myself. And the most important thing to note here is that in an autobiography, first person is used, because I am the person about whose life I am going to write myself. So I will write whenever I will want to say anything about my life, I will use the first person I and we, and its different forms. But as you can see in biography, suppose that you as a person want to write about my life history, then whatever you write will be a biography of my life. It will not be an autobiography. So biography is the history of a person's life written by somebody else, right? This is the difference between an autobiography and a biography. To analyze a biography or autobiography, what we have to do, that is the next point that we'll try to understand. Yes, what should we do to analyze a biography? Whenever we have read a biography, there are three things after you have read you must consider. Number one, what is the purpose of the biography? Why has the author written this biography? Number two, how effective the author has been in his purpose. And number three, what style the author has used to write his biography or write somebody else's biography. Right? So, what do we include in trying to understand the purpose? Why should or why does a person write an autobiography, or why does a person write a biography of other persons? We must consider 3 points here. Number one, there may be 3 purposes. Number one, the author wants to inform some important aspects of his or somebody else's life. Number two, the author wants to persuade us, the readers, to agree to his opinion about somebody else's life or his own life. And number three, the author wants to entertain us. There might be a mixture of these three, right? The purpose might be not only to inform but to persuade, or rather not only to persuade but also to entertain, or a mixture of all these three. Second point is to understand, to evaluate how effective the author has been in writing biography or his autobiography. We have to find out three things. Number one, what are the anecdotes he has used? How he has used it? What are the facts that is mentioned? And what are the examples that he has put before us? The way these three things are produced before us shows the effectiveness of the biography or autobiography. And finally, what is the style of writing? There are three things which contains tone, style, and diction. Students, after having understood the basics of a biography, let us go straight to the story. As you can see on the screen yourself, that the story can be divided or can be studied under two heads. Number one, introduction about grandmother and grandfather. And number two, the three stages of the author's relationship with his grandmother. Khushwant Singh has produced the biography of his grandmother in this two way. In the three stages, we can see this can be divided into three further sub-stages. Number one, village life. Number two, city life before the author goes abroad for higher studies. And number three, city life after the author returns back from abroad. So, these three are the points under which we will be understanding and knowing the story or the biography of the grandmother of Khushwant Singh. Students, now it's time to answer these questions. Please read the question carefully, answer them and post them.